Probably the most common mistake I see in my coaching sessions. Standing under turret does absolutely nothing for your team. Um, so the problem with being under turret, let's say the enemy team decides to invade the red buff, you have no idea. They can just go take it for free. So what I would rather you do is you can stand here, and that way at least this entrance is blocked off. It doesn't block every entrance because it is bronze, and so your teammates are having the same thought process of just standing under turret, but it's a little better.
Right.
And if you're not going to be standing under turret, then you should at least be setting up tentacles. But you're standing in the same place, you're getting nothing new.
Well, my tentacle. I think I'm about to move up here because I think I realized it. And then for this one, I do believe I'll walk with the wave to set it up.
Yeah.
Yep.
But it's like, okay. What you could have done, especially if you were in this brush, if you think that the enemy jungler might leash, which in this case they did, if you think there's a chance they might leash, and you're stronger than them, what you can do is you can go from here into this brush, have your tentacles set up, and then cheese them before they get into lane.
Fair enough. I've always been told Illaoi's like super weak level 1.
She is, but it's a KO, so you can so you have to think about this. You're not committing to an all-in. All you're doing is like let's say Kale's coming through and you started Q here. So you'll stand right here. As soon as she gets in your Q range, you Q and back off. You never get hit.
Okay.
So and it doesn't really matter what champion they are because of how long your Q range is. You're just getting a little bit of an edge. It's not like you're trying to outright fight them to the death there.
Okay.
Okay. So what is the goal, level 1? What's the plan?
For Illaoi, really my whole plan is to kind of set up 2 tentacles on them, and try to essentially freeze them under tower, which I know is kind of counterintuitive, but I'm trying to get to level 6 as fast as possible, hope they gank, and then try to draw a double kill.
Okay. So how much of that takes into account the matchup?
I mean,
None of it.
yeah.
Because you just said that as a Illaoi, you like to push. What if you can't in the matchup? You just die.
Yeah.
So the first thing that goes in your mind, it's fine you're talking about getting a freeze and all that. That's great. But the first thing you need to think about is what you're actually able to do, and then you work with that. Because if you're playing against something that's also weak early, like Scion, for example, you have a lot more options than if you're against something like a Tryndamere or a Teemo that's just going to poke you down. So you have to take that into account when you're going into every game. Have you played against Kale before?
Yes.
Okay. So, do you think that she's able to stop you from hitting level 2 first?
Generally, just all kills in general, no. And again, I'm just speaking from this Elo experience.
Yeah.
I think they know they are also weak level 1 and don't tend to push aggressively.
Okay. So then you have your thought process. Now, I don't care, which I agree with what you said, but I don't care if you're wrong. Let's say this is a matchup where you absolutely can't do it. I don't care if you're wrong and you say you can. As long as you go into the game with that thought process, then there's something to learn from if it goes badly. But if you do the same thing every game, then you can't really test what went right and what went wrong or why. But now you can go in thinking, okay, I should be able to push into Kale. And if you can't push into Kale because she shows you can't, then in the next time you play against Kale, then you'll realize, oh, I need to let her push. Unless she did something really stupid, obviously. So, let's say our intent is to push, which which it should be, you're still not setting it up properly. So, what... Okay. You mentioned wanting to crash the wave and then set up a freeze.
Mm-hmm.
What wave are you wanting to crash?
Well, and this is why I said it's counterintuitive. I'm not just saying like set up a freeze on my side. I'm saying I want to like on their side.
So you're saying you want to have it locked here?
Correct, because like I said, I want to end up drawing. I want to hopefully not die before 6. Set up this right here freeze on their side, and then draw in a gank. Because most people, again, in my experience at the Sela, most people can't dodge an E, and even after getting hooked, they tend to just rush me.
Okay. Yeah, I don't like that at all. So, like, if you're gonna playing here, now Illaoi's a weird champion where she does really like being in the opponent's face, like because she can get tentacles here and here, and it's really helpful. But that doesn't mean you should just be locked here. Still ideally, a lot of the time you would rather have Kale here. The reason being, let's say, so you have the wave frozen here, and you're against Kale. Who wins late game?
Oh, Kale easily.
Yeah. So if you lock here and she's able to farm for free under her turret, she has the advantage.
Well, and see, that's what I'm saying is once they get to this point, as soon as I can, I'm clearing the wave, crashing into her turret every time I can.
Okay, so then it's not a freeze.
Well, yeah, I guess that's true. I said freeze because I'm stuck in front of her turret. Most laners would say, "Oh, I've got him frozen in front of my turret."
Yes.
I guess they would communicate that back to their jungler. Whereas, to me, I'm not actually frozen. I'm there of my own volition.
Yes. I guess I'll just have to see what in the world you do.
Okay.
And then I'll talk about what I wanted to see. Because, yeah. So, alright. Wave goes under turret. What's going to happen with the wave?
She's going to spend as much time as she can trying to last hitting.
Mm-hmm.
But I do believe she's not strong enough to properly time a last hit on the 3 casters.
I don't care about the last hits. What is going to happen with the next wave? Where is it going to be?
I think I kind of draw it towards my tentacle, but generally speaking, it's still going to be on their side.
Yes. And then in the future, is it going to push... Like, let's say you both last hit. Is it going to push into you, or is it going to stay near her turret?
So we completely clear all minions?
I'm saying you... So she farms these minions under turret.
Mm-hmm.
And then your minions come in. They're going to meet somewhere around here. Like your minions and her minions. If you both just last hit, only hitting the minions when they're about to die, which way is the wave going to push if it's right here? And you have the same amount of minions. Like you both have your 6 from each wave.
After the next wave arrives, it should push back towards me. But
yes.
Again, I kind of stop that.
Because, yeah, they meet here, and then you do this. This is the ideal scenario for Kale. The Kale player is loving this. Now, she's bad and she's getting hit by a lot of abilities. But this is exactly what she wants because it makes it so easy for her to hit level 6. And she can't get ganked. Your jungler can't do anything with this. Now, he may be able to dive eventually because she keeps getting hit by things, as I said. But if she's playing properly, this is what she wants. And so what's going to end up happening is you crash this wave. Great. Again, she's getting to farm under turret. And then it's going to be the same thing. Just over and over. And now you have to ward when you shouldn't have to ward here. And I'll explain in a minute why you shouldn't have to. And then this is going to be a rinse and repeat. Nothing happens. This isn't going to turn into a kill. It's barely a farm lead. And that's only more on Kale's fault than anything anything else. You're low mana, and then you die to a game. Okay.
Right.
So if we go way back, what I would rather see, and this is going to apply to any champion in top lane pretty much, because I know you mentioned that you were like playing other champions as well.
Right, but
Uh,
with them, it's a whole different play style. I'm assuming, not trying to jump ahead of you,
Mhm.
anything here, but I'm assuming you're gonna say you want me to attempt to freeze it over here, only continue the last hit and trim the wave, which is more of my Garen gameplay because I'm just much more confident in Illaoi that if I do get ganked, I will get at least one kill, if not both. Whereas with Garen, I tend to poke much more.
Sure, but it's the timing of when you're getting ganked is important. And like, so if you go 1-for-1 in a gank, it's not really that good for you because what's gonna depending on how the jungler is doing it. So if let's say the jungler he cleared his top side, or sorry, he cleared his bot side, he clears his top side, and he comes top and he ganks you. You kill the Karthus, great. You die. Then what happens? Kayle clears the wave and you miss all the minions.
Right.
Karthus doesn't miss anything because he's waiting for his camps to respawn anyway because he already cleared them bottom. So it's not that good for you to die 1-for-1. It depends. Like, there are times where it's worth dying 1-for-1 and having the jungler to gank you, but I think you're really overdoing it. So what I would rather see is, and setting up a freeze is also going to pull the jungler a lot too, and I'll get to that. So if instead of doing this, you just slow push the first wave, it's like pretty much only last hitting, then you do the same thing with the second wave, and Kayle came into lane low HP because I guess she was tanking the blue buff. I don't know. But here's another issue. Okay, so you do this. How many minions does it take to hit level 2?
6+1.
Yeah.
So, yep.
Yeah, it's the first minion, the second wave, right? Yep. Is there any way that you can get a level 2 advantage where you're at?
No.
No, because always under the turret. So even if you kill this minion, great, you can't do anything. You gain absolutely nothing. But if you're slow pushing the wave, you hit level 2 here, then you can actually walk at her. But if she's under turret, you can't do anything. Which is why pushing this fast is only helping her. But yeah, instead I would rather you slow push the first wave, slow push the second wave, and then on the cannon wave, you can look to crash it. What ends up happening with you crashing the wave is then you can look to recall, and the game's over for Kayle. Assuming you play correctly from there. Because you'll come back, the wave will be like here, like we were talking about earlier, you have your tentacles, great. You don't even need to ward, because you left the lane to go back to base, and you're under turret. So you pulling pressure from the jungler, like that's great and all, but it doesn't do anything. Because what does something is if you set the freeze up here, and you zone Kayle off of getting any minions. Then she can't play the game, then she's crying to her jungler. What you're doing here, where you're just shoving waves, it does nothing to Kayle. And you end up dying. And it's just a whole mess. But we'll see what happens when we come back. After the death. Let's start this. Come on, buddy. Okay. So, I got a feeling I know what you're going to do, because you already kind of mentioned it. You're just going to shove this wave as hard as you can, aren't you?
I do believe so.
Yeah. And again, you're only helping Kale by doing this. What's going to happen if I speed it up? Shove the waves. And look where the waves meet. Right here. She loves it. This is ideal for Kale. And you're thinking, oh great, I got my tentacle set up. It doesn't matter. You're crashing the wave anyway, so she doesn't have to walk up. She's right here in the turret. She's already hit 6. She gets to farm for free. You can't do anything. I don't know why you're standing here. Do you see how if she doesn't fight you, this is a stalemate?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. That's the whole issue. So it's just going to be the same thing over and over again. You're going to keep pushing, she's going to keep farming on the turret. And then here, great, you get a kill. Now, the reason you get a kill is because the Kale, for whatever reason, decided to melee fight you. I don't know why. Because, let's see, right here, she just walks into you. I don't know. But again, all she has to do, she just walks back, and then it's kind of the counterpart you were talking about earlier. She just doesn't fight you in your ultimate, and she's fine. But for whatever reason, she did. And then continued to stay inside of your tentacles and die. Recall. Okay. So I briefly mentioned it earlier. This ward. You don't gain anything from it because you're about to leave the lane. You don't care if that's warded. You're in base. Couldn't care less if Karthus comes through here. And this wave, now that you've crashed it, it's going to slowly push into you. And it's going to be near your turret. So while you're collecting the wave, again, you do not care if Karthus comes through there. So when you're warding, you need to think about what you plan to do and where you're going to be in the next 30 or so seconds. Because what I'd rather you do is you can just chill right here, and then when you do need to ward, you'll have 2 of them up instead of 1. But regardless, we're here. And then again, we cleared the wave. It's going to be the same thing over and over again. Great. Again, Kel makes the same mistake. Trying to skip past the point of just repeating the same thing over and over again.
There's a really shitty dive coming here in a second. I get rift, and then we have a really, really shitty dive. And
This is bad.
It's what caused the me and Gragas thing. But like you said, that's just turn off chat and it won't matter.
Yeah. Okay. So, why are you going to Rift?
My plan was to take Rift, pop turret, and then proceed to march down to T2 and take that.
Okay. So,
but like I said, it turns into a dive and
yeah. Couple things. One, in the process of taking this Herald, you're missing minions. She's going to be able to crash this wave. You miss a whole ton of minions, so you miss the golden XP. And I don't... Well, another couple things, actually, yeah. One, you don't need Herald to break this turret. You've got 3 minutes. You've got plenty of time. And you're really strong, so you should be able to do it without getting Herald. At most, you could crash this wave, and then you could help Gragas with Herald, because at least you've cleared the minions.
Mm-hmm.
But you don't need to do it before. Another thing, I actually don't think you want to break this turret. Right now, at least. Reason being, this turret's healthy. This turret's also healthy. This turret healthy. Now, the bot lane enemy turret, your team may be able to get this, which is great, but you're not in a rush to kill the turret. And the great thing about keeping turret up is that you can keep Kayle here, which is, again, what you want. You want to keep Kayle out of her safe zone. If you push this turret, Kayle gets to sit right here and farm. So I don't actually like you breaking the turret. Not when you're this far ahead. Because instead, you just, I mean, I've said it a million times, but because their turret's up, it makes it 10 times easier to just freeze right here until she can't play the game.
Right, and I can go ahead and tell you the thought process behind me doing this, I'm sure, was, hey, I want first turret gold. I want to be uber far ahead.
Yeah, and I completely understand having that thought process. And there are some times where that's correct. Like, if this turret was lower, or if any of your turrets were close to the enemy getting first turret, absolutely. Or if this was close to 14 minutes and you're going to miss out on the plates, again, I agree. But because you have so much time, it's not needed to rush it right now.
Okay.
And then, yeah, take this, and then, so yeah, I guess this is the dive you're talking about.
GD dive, yep.
How do you... Oh, you hit the turret.
Yeah.
So,
I mean...
there's a key that prevents this. Are you familiar with it?
It's the settings, I do believe. I think it's bound to my X right now, where it shows your attack range, and it's the attack move setting, something along those lines.
That's not what I'm looking for, actually. There's a setting called champion only key. So if you hold it, you can only hit champions.
Okay, it's super useful.
Yeah, so if they try to hide under turret, or if like they hide under Baron or whatever, you'll always hit them every time. Now, of course, this only counts for point and clicks like autos and your W. It's not gonna work on a skill shot, obviously.
Right.
But yeah, using that ability, there's no way you ever accidentally hit the
right. It would have changed this from I believe Karthus actually picks up both of the kills.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say it would have changed it from a double kill for Karthus into hopefully turret and just a single kill, but
yeah. Although I think part of the problem is that when they go in, it's like you really just don't chase Kayle here in general, but it's not that bad. Because if you go for Kayle here, I think you still die. And that's only because you have Smite. Like, if you had Flash, you can get away with this, because you can take a turret shot or whatever for Gragas and then flash out. But yeah, there's no way you get out here, so... it's such a disaster.
Yeah. And like I said, that started the whole flame discussion between me and Gragas.
Yeah. And Gragas wanted to go in, but he can't because the minions are going to block his E. So he can't dash through. Yeah. That's what it is. Flaming begins. Okay. So, now we're pushing the wave. Actually go back a little bit here. So, Dragon is up. It is worth keeping in mind. You don't have to fight for it, because it is the first dragon. It's not that big of a deal, but you can at least consider if you want to play for it.
Right.
Especially since Karthus died. What you can do is you can take this turret, shove the next wave, and then you can run immediately to dragon. Or you could even just take jungle camps, depending on how fast... Yeah, okay. Yeah, Gragas is actually killing you right now, so you don't have to do that. You can just kill this wave, and then go into the jungle camps. So hopefully that's what I see. I don't know what this is. Okay. Alright. Did he not see you?
I'm not certain. I'm fairly certain he even wards that bush. I'm fairly certain he wards that bush directly before I walk into it, or directly after I walk into it.
Let's get into the mind of the Karthus. Okay, he wards it. And then he just walks into it. Junglers.
Yeah.
I really don't know what he expected to happen. There's melee into Illaoi. But I guess he's permabanning Illaoi after this game. Yeah. So the approach to the kill was very strange. Um, I guess it's fine. I would never even walk up here because I'll just assume Karthus isn't going to randomly walk into me. And I'll just go for the buff, but it's fine that you got the kill. But yeah. Either way, you take the buff, then...
Gragas ends up with the buff. I
yeah,
think
yeah,
take
that's
Gromp.
fine. That's fine. Just as long as the camps are cleared. Clear the camps, great. Clear this wave, and then I believe... yeah, you have a lot of gold, so you should be looking to recall after you crash this. Man, we are walking all the way home, jeez.
I think I was trying to decide whether I wanted to join that river scuffle there. And
Yeah. Okay. Gotta work on the speed here.
Might be typing. Not certain.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I think at this point I'm talking shit to Gragas, saying, hey, you know, if you hadn't fucked up the dive, it wouldn't have mattered whatsoever. And the reason I specifically wanted this VOD is I do believe we lose because I talk shit to Gragas. We lose by forfeit. I don't know if you saw that, but my entire team forfeits.
Yeah, that's in 10 minutes. Okay, I gotta be right back. Real quick.
Yep.
Alright, sorry about that. Right back.
No, you're all good. And then touching up on the speed thing too. I think here in a second you'll see me push forwards and then end up again like just walking backwards, sitting still and typing because I mean, again, that's my ego. That's me getting pissed off at Gragas for no reason, but
Crash the wave. Ward is fine. I would have liked for you to have gone through here and taken the Gromp, but it's okay.
Alright, yeah. I believe this is the point where I start typing.
Mm-hmm. Yep. We could take Gromp. Because this is kind of similar to even in the laning phase, where you're not really accomplishing anything here. You're just farming with it. So crashing the wave is great. That's the first part. And then you want to do something with that window where you don't need to farm. So you can do camps, you can do Herald. This would be a much better time to do Herald than earlier. Or, depending on what's happening mid lane, you could look for a mid lane roam. A lot of different options. Maybe even look for a recall, depending on your gold. I'm seeing none of that. Doing what you're doing right now, where you're standing and just continuing to constantly hit minions in a turret, is fine if either A, this turret's really low HP and you're just trying to force kill it anyway, or if you're not playing Illaoi. If you're playing a ranged champion that can sit here and poke Kale, then that's fine. But you're just not the champion that's able to do that realistically. What is this Kale doing? Oh my god. Okay. Got a kill. Great. So we got a kill on Kale. We have already crashed the wave. Now your Kai'Sa's is dead. That's fine. What I need to see is you running to Dragon. But you're probably not going to do that.
No, definitely not.
We're going to crash the wave. And your team kills Sona, which is also fantastic. But here's the thing. You don't kill this turret. And even if you did, I would much rather you make sure your team gets the dragon for a lot of reasons. One, you're not missing minions because you've already crashed into a turret. And then also, let's say the enemy team tries to contest you on the dragon. Great. Then you can easily win the fight because you killed Kale, and then you're strong anyway. This is also, what's great about Illaoi, is she's really good at setting up for objectives, Because if you stand like in this brush or somewhere around here, I don't know the exact range for Illaoi, to be honest, on our tentacles. But if you set up tentacles like here, they can't walk in. And so it's really, really good for that. And that's how I was talking about earlier against like Vayne and stuff. You do stuff like this, they have to walk into you, not you walk into them. That assumes we're there at the proper time. Now, we're fighting off Karthus. Now this is good, unintentionally, because Karthus is here, which means he can't go for the dragon. And then you probably get turned here. Great. Recall. Oh, no. We're gonna die? No. Okay. Now this goes back to what I said before I opened the VOD, that you're not split pushing. You're just pushing endlessly. Because if you're going this game, your whole goal of split pushing is supposed to be that you're pulling the opponent away from something they want.
Right.
So, what is up right now that the opponent would want?
Baron.
Right. If you go top lane, you are not pulling them from Baron. Because all they got to do, let's say you're here, they can just kill you right here, and then it's a very short trip to Baron. If you're here, it's much different. Then they have to commit much more because they've got to go all this way to deal with whatever happens at Baron. So I'd rather you be there. Now, when Dragon is up, what you're doing is fine, but Dragon's not up for 4 minutes, so there's no reason to be here. We're pushing. I'm hoping that you do not go for the next wave. You. And this goes back to another thing that I talked about before opening the VOD. You need to consider where people are and where your teammates are when you're pushing. Because you don't know where the enemies are, and I definitely know during the game you were not thinking about that while pushing. Because the map is dark, and your closest teammates are here. So if people show up top lane, it's not going to be pretty, you're going to throw your bounty, and it's a really easy way to lose the game. Which probably doesn't happen. I wish it did, because at least it would give you immediate feedback during the game, but you're probably going to get away with it. Yep. Kraken's gets the ult kill. Great. There are 3 enemies dead, so it's... I was going to say it's fine to push a little bit, but...
Yeah, I didn't realize Jin was fed, or so
Yeah.
fed at this point.
Admittedly, I didn't expect you to die there. But yeah, he is 11-2, so... Yikes.
All right. And Jin is, I mean, like I said, I think a lot of the shit talking is the reason we forfeited, but they could very well say, oh, well, Jin was too far ahead. Because Jin ended up as the carry, clearly.
He is really far ahead, sure. But I don't think that's entirely fair, because your team still has 7.5k gold lead.
Oh, I agree.
2 dragons, so...
Like I said, I don't think we should have forfeited. I don't think we should have lost, but I knew this one was full of, like, chock full of mistakes that I made that I wanted looked at.
Speaking of mistakes, so this goes back to what I was talking about earlier. We're not playing around Dragon at all. So, okay. Right now, coming out of base, Dragon spawns in about 50 seconds. Within 50 seconds, do you have time to push all the waves and have the wave crashing here on their...
No.
Right.
Probably not.
You don't. Not even close. So, what's going to end up happening is you're going to crash really late. They're going to win, the enemy team's going to win the dragon fight, and then they're going to send someone to deal with you after. And you don't accomplish anything. Whereas if you run straight to dragon now, you can be there for the dragon fight, and then you'll actually have some value. If, let's say you come out of base, and instead of 50 seconds before dragon, it's a minute 30 before dragon, then you can actually consider what you did, because you have time to push all the way to the turret. But that's just not the case here. And this is another problem with building Hullbreaker all the time, especially first, is because you're locked into doing what you're doing to a degree. Because you're just so weak if you don't go push. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So I don't like you just hard committing on this all the time. Now, there are times where Hullbreaker is great in solo queue, don't get me wrong. It's just you need to understand that it's a game where you just can't do team fights, and this is not that kind of game. I would rather you just have your consistent, you can go Triforce and then Death Dance, or whatever you want to build in the game. I don't really care that much about it, but a lot of times Sterix is going to give you way more value.
Yeah, I typically only buy a lifeline item, either Sterix either last, or if I'm going into a heavy AP team, I'll typically buy a Maul pretty early on.
Yeah, that's perfectly fine. But now we're going to see the results of pushing here. Your team gets the dragon because the enemy team conceded it, fortunately. They just...
Yeah.
They managed to lose that 3v1. 4v1,
They did.
actually.
Jin ends up killing me here, but again, this is where I say if I had Ghost, I could have caught Jin. And again, this is my whole ego, taking turrets. But yeah, I believe it's a Karthus ult, and then Jin times it to hit me. Not even an ult, it's another, what is that, his W?
Yeah, it's his W. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep. Still very winnable.
Alright, and then again, my ego's coming up here in the mid lane. Still not realizing Jin's so fed that he can do this to me. Oh, maybe it's not that one. It's the next one then. I mean, clearly lost that one, but...
He pops you. Mm-hmm. So, again, we have to consider what is the purpose of what we're doing. So right now, your goal should be you want to get Baron. Everything you do is based around getting Baron, or at least getting some form of gold. Going here, it doesn't really do anything, because Vel'Koz is here, Kais is in base, Gragas is dead, and Akali's here, so there's no way you can start a fight if you just look at where your teammates are. And then, you don't even want to be catching this wave, because Akali is also here, so you're just splitting gold and XP. So again, you should just be bottom, or at least taking jungle camps or something. Then it's way better. You wouldn't even be in a situation where you could die to a Jhin. And let's say the Jin's not fed. Let's say, I don't know, he's 2-2 instead of 14-2. You still don't get anything done here. At most, you crash the wave, and then that's it. But you're still at a disadvantage because you had to split the gold and XP. And Jhin being fed just happened to be a thing that at least made you somewhat realize it was a mistake, but for the wrong reason. This is absolute disaster. Gragas is tilted, you're tilted. It's great fun. Running mid lane is fine here. Why do you think it's fine here and not earlier?
Let's see, anybody dead? Karthus is down. They're probably not going to be able to smite Baron. There's nobody in lane, so I'm going to be able to catch all the golden experience.
Yeah, that last one is what I'm looking for. Yep. Because no one can catch mid, so it's fine for you to catch it. You can just run mid lane, and then you can run straight bot and get both of the waves pushing. Yep. Now, you go and you hit this plant. Let's see if that was correct. Okay, yeah, that's fine. I don't think you had seen anybody yet.
No, I was thinking they were at Baron for some
Yeah.
reason.
And then, okay, and here's the FF. But, yeah, so turn off chat's the easiest one, obviously. Wave management. Oh, warning. So you need to work on having more thought out reasons for why you're pushing or when you can have the enemy push into you. And you did mention that you do it a little bit differently on Garen, and maybe that is the case. But I still don't think it would be to the degree that I'm really looking for. So if you have a lead and you can force that elite on your opponent, then it's really great to be able to set up that freeze to where they can't get any farm, or at least so that you can get a better all-in opportunity. Instead of just having them constantly under the turret where they can't do anything. Or where you can't do anything to them, sorry. Now, if you have a reason to push, then that's fine. If you need to recall for gold, if you need to head to dragon, or if your jungler's coming in and you can set up a dive, I'm perfectly okay with the push. It just needs to be... There needs to be more of a reason instead of just pushing every single wave like you were.
Fair enough.
Warding is kind of relative to the wave management, as well as recalling. Just you only want to ward when you're actually going to need the ward. So you want to ward when you don't know where the enemies are, and you're going to be in a vulnerable position within the next 15-30 seconds. So if you're pushing into, like you're trying to push and crash the wave top lane, and you haven't seen Karthus for a while, then that's a great time to ward. If you see Karthus bot lane as you're doing it, then you don't care. You can hold on to the ward, because you know he can't gank you. Just those kind of things. And then this one, a lot of the split push is thinking about what you're actually gaining from it. So if you can fight for dragon, then that's great. A lot of times, if you're strong, that's an easier way to continue your advantage is to make sure your team gets the dragon. You can win a fight, whatever. But sometimes that's not the correct play because either you're already crashing a huge wave under their turret and then you can dive them, or maybe your jungler dies and you can't get the dragon. Then in that case, it's fine to push. But again, it's similar to the wave management and the warding. There just needs to be a reason. I don't care if it's wrong. Just a reason for it consistently that you can at least test and see if something went right or wrong with it. And then obviously, if you still can't figure out where you went wrong, then that's where you get other opinions like me or someone else. But I think it's the biggest thing. It's just making sure all of your decisions are conscious, really.
Okay, fair enough. And like I said, I mean, I didn't say specifically that the goal for me, at least every time I come up lane, is to take either a turret or an inhib. Not that that was the prettiest game. Clearly, I mean, I never even ended up pushing another lane, but and I have seen people say I shouldn't do this. I guess I just haven't heard a good reason why. But like I said, I won't leave a lane until I have that inhib, and then like I said, I would go bottom, and then I would go mid, and it's almost always in that order. I would top inhib, bottom inhib, mid inhib.
Yeah, and there's a lot of reasons why you can't do that. So first thing, like let's say you want to get. Let me use the actual pen. Let's say you want to get this inhib. That's fine. But you have to consider what is the risk. So when you're going for this inhib, if these turrets are still up, and same thing for bot lane, then that means your teammates are still going to be either here or they're going to be here, something like that, and you're very far up relative to where they are. So you're going to be very vulnerable going for this inhibitor. However, if instead of doing that, like let's say you take the first turret, maybe the second turret, and then you help them kill the mid inhib, mid turret, you have more room to work with because your teammate is further up and it's easier for them to back you up. So a lot of the times, it's actually better to focus on like the earlier turrets and then work your way to the inhibs. If you have a great opportunity for inhib, then go for it, of course. But it is generally riskier than working your way through the outer turrets first so that your teammates can actually back you up. Or at least pull
Right.
pressure properly.
I guess a lot of, and don't get me wrong, I mean, it's all great advice. I guess a lot of where my issue is specifically because I do it with Illaoi. Like I said in the beginning, my whole goal is kind of to pull 2 to 3 people to me, and I mean, I think it will change, of course, getting to silver and gold, but in bronze at least, it's almost always a guaranteed 2 for 1, 3 for 1 kind of
Same thing
ordeal for
about
me.
silver and gold. It's the exact same thing.
Okay, well, I mean, so then even going through silver and gold, I mean, it's generally speaking, it is a guaranteed 2 to 3 kills for me, which I feel, and clearly, I mean, I could be wrong, but I feel that opens up a lot of like, sorry, I guess depending on who I kill, like that would open it up for my mid laner to take their turret, so on and so forth, as opposed to me
In
physically being
theory,
present
yes.
taking the turret.
The timing is important.
Right.
Because, like, let's say you're top lane and you've killed, I don't know, this turret, and then you're here. Oops, you're here. If your mid laner recalled right before you do this fight, it doesn't do anything. If you have this fight, however, when your mid laner is crashing a massive wave, then there's much more impact.
Right.
Which
Okay.
goes right back to what I was just talking about, where you want to be pretty much at the same line as your teammates to get actual value from your quote unquote pressure. So what you're doing is perfectly fine. It's just it's not an all game thing. It has to be intentionally synced if you're going to do something like that.
Okay. Yeah, fair enough. Makes more sense. Um, anything else? No, I mean you've offered a lot of great advice.
And yeah, if you think of like any other questions after the call ends, you can always just DM me. If you want to do another session in the future, again, you can just DM me. I don't care about going through the summoner school process. It doesn't matter to me. You don't gotta wait
Okay.
another month. Although if you want someone else to coach you from you there, then you do have to wait a month. I think is their wait time.
Right.
But
Uh, not a problem. I mean, I'm always up for advice. Like I said, I chose this one specifically because I felt like there's a ton of mistakes. I mean, if you're available, whenever I've got, I think there's 18 and one that I've done recently that I don't mind you looking at that and seeing. And I think a lot of my success does come from misplays on the enemy team, but I think I rely on that. I think that's part of my game plan, and clearly I can't always rely on that. Eventually, it's going to be less of them making mistakes, and I need to force the mistake. Uh, hmm. Is there any good times for you for specifically for VOD reviews or anything?
literally, I can do anytime. I recently graduated from college. I don't have a job at the moment, so I can do anytime.
Okay, fair enough. I mean, do you have time right now?
I mean, yes, but I think it would be pointless because it would be the same information. You get what I'm saying? Like even if you're 18 and one, all of that's going to be there again. I guarantee it.
Oh, I absolutely. I can tell you in the 18-1 game, I didn't even think about warding if I was that far ahead.
Yeah. So I think is like you could give it a couple of days or whatever, however long you think is enough to at least see some progress in this stuff, and then you can hit me up and we can go from there to whatever the next step will be.
Okay. Quick question as far as the wave management.
Mhm.
One of the reasons that really I started doing like that plan of trying to trap them under turret, was that I was having problems not really last hitting because last hitting is what it is. I can time that pretty easily. But getting poked while last hitting, I would always return with a Q, and that would kind of especially later on, like that would clear the wave right then and there.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
I guess do you have any tips on how to sustain or avoid the pokes while last hitting?
Well, okay. So the first thing is one. It depends on how fed you are. So in like the game against Kale, where you're really far ahead, you don't care if she tries to poke you. You just take a fight right then if she does. But let's say if you're strictly talking about, I zoomed in too much there. If you're strictly talking about pushing too much because of your Q, a lot of that comes down to how you aim the Q. So like let's say you've got some like minions here or whatever. Man, this is scuffed. No, don't draw. So you're like here, whatever. If you walk up and then throw your ability, you hit less minions than if you were to walk. Or no, sorry, if you walk down, you hit less minions than if you walk up to like here or something and throw it through all the minions. Now my drawing isn't perfect. But a lot of it is just positioning relative to the opponent. And specifically on Illaoi, if you're going to freeze, you want to have them have a bigger wave than normal because of that reason. So, like, if you're playing Garen or something that has a little bit more control over how much you clear the wave, then you just want to have the 3 minion difference or 4 minion difference, whatever. But with Illaoi, you want to have more of like a 5 minion difference to give you that room to clear
Right.
in your trades, and then it'll still continue to push into you, and it's not that big of a deal. Obviously, that's assuming you can get that 5 minion difference. If you can't, then you just work with what you have. But if they're hitting you, they're naturally trying to push anyway because they're pulling minion aggro, so it's not actually that bad if you're careful with how you throw your abilities.
Okay. Yeah, because like I said, I think that's kind of what led me developing that strategy in the first place. Is I was originally a Garen main and then went to Illaoi. And then with, like you said, with Garen, it's a lot more precise. Attack, a Q, and then easy to trim is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Whereas once I ended up with Illaoi, I was like, well, damn, every time I try to not take so much damage or return damage, I'm clearing the wave really, really fast.